What is lore if not useless information persevering? The word lore comes from the Old English lair, meaning instruction or knowledge. These days, lore is often used to describe the deep background and world building in fictional universes, like in books, games, or movies. While the context may have changed, the core idea remains the same. It's all about knowledge being passed down, whether real or imagined. In recent years, the concept of lore has gained popularity, especially among younger generations like Generation Z and Alpha. It's evolved to represent not just traditional myths or stories, but any personal history, experiences that shape us into who we are today. Once primarily a niche interest in nerd circles, lore has now entered mainstream culture, offering a way for people to connect by sharing histories that foster emotional bonds in an increasingly disconnected society. Everything and everyone has lore. Even me, the narrator of this video. In fact, I'd like to take a moment to share my lore, a quick background on who I am and what has shaped me into the person bringing you this video. My lore begins on December 24th, 1999, but if we're getting technical, it starts about 9 months earlier. My mom named me Alejandro, and today I'm a 25-year-old Mexican American who looks Middle Eastern to many people. I was laid off from my corporate job, and despite my best efforts, nothing solid has come up. After 4 years as what I like to call a glorified capitalist henchman, I've pretty much given up hope on landing a new role anytime soon. That's why I decided to create this YouTube channel, to give purpose to my unstructured free time and to exercise my creative muscles. Over the past few months, I've focused on healing physically, mentally, and spiritually. Lore, in all its forms, is really about perspective. It's about stepping back and seeing the patterns and connections in your own story. My fascination with lore began with the washed-up franchise, Star Wars. Every character, every location, even ice cream containers seem to have a backstory, explored through books, comics, games, TV shows, t-shirts, toys, and cereal boxes. You get the idea. It's the greatest intersection of art and capitalism ever made. Growing up, I soon realized that lore wasn't exclusive to Star Wars. It was everywhere, in other franchises, in the real world, but most importantly, in people's lives. This discovery sent me down a rabbit hole of fascination that I've never quite escaped. The only thing that could snap me out of it was when something broke a universe's internal logic. The first time I felt that psychic whiplash was thanks to one particular monkey. One of my favorite franchises growing up, and still to this day, is the Super Mario universe. It's a fun, wacky world where most of the lore is pieced together by fan speculation and theories. But that's what makes it special, the mystery and the connection. I feel for the characters and the places in this world. As a kid, I was obsessed, uncovering every bit of lore I could get my hands on. Then one day, my entire world came crashing down, all because of a stupid baseball cap. Enter Diddy Kong. Donkey Kong is the iconic fictional gorilla who debuted in 1981, but this section isn't about him. It's about his grandson's maybe friend, maybe nephew, Diddy. Diddy Kong is a chimpanzee with ties to Donkey Kong III, the same Donkey Kong who appeared in the 2023 Mario movie with his signature red tie and most modern group outing games. Diddy originated from the Donkey Kong Country series and became a fan favorite, appearing in Mario Kart, Mario Party, and even getting his own series, Diddy Kong Racing. Side note, I really loved that game as a kid, and they should totally bring it back on the Nintendo Switch too. Anyway, let's talk about the cap. Diddy Kong wears a red hat, and on that hat is the word that broke me, Nintendo. It makes no sense. How could Nintendo exist as a brand in the Mario/Donkey Kong universe? This shattered my immersion as a 6-year-old, because how could Nintendo, the company behind these characters, be a thing in a world where they are the characters? It's like the universe was breaking its own rules. There are plenty of examples in Nintendo franchises where their consoles or accessories pop up in the lore, making me wonder, what role does Nintendo play in its own fictional universe? I was vindicated in the 2023 Super Mario Bros. Movie, where we see Mario himself playing on the NES. As a 23-year-old, that moment rattled me. And then Diddy makes a cameo in the Mario vs. Donkey Kong battle scene, where thankfully, his hat does not say Nintendo. Seeing that in the theater was a bit of validation for 7-year-old me. But still, they included an NES in the movie. Clearly someone on the creative team caught what I did as a kid and decided to remove the branding. But these small inconsistencies remind me how fragile lore is and how crazy I am. Building a fictional universe and keeping it consistent with its own rules is an exhausting, meticulous process. And the funniest part, even one tiny grain of sand, like a baseball cap, has the power to destroy what took decades to build. Let's look at a few more examples. Recasting of actors in movies and TV. I usually hate when this happens, and it almost always goes unexplained. It really breaks the immersion for me when stuff like this happens. Sad to see fictional universes crumble because of scheduling conflicts or bad blood between actors. With the recent multiverse hype, discrepancies between actors are often retconned as us witnessing different universes. It's a lazy explanation, but one that's gaining traction. It's slightly more preferable than it just going unexplained though. Game of Thrones, the infamous coffee cup. And then there's the Game of Thrones coffee cup incident. In season 8, during a scene set in the middle of Winterfell, the last place you expect to see a modern day object, a Starbucks style cup, is just chilling in front of Daenerys. It was like a giant middle finger to the immersion of the show that built up over the last 8 seasons. The world of Game of Thrones is supposed to be medieval, high fantasy, with dragons, swords, and ancient magic. Yet the cup ripped everyone out of the lore and made us wonder, does Westeros have baristas now? Are they bisexual? How good is the coffee? This tiny mistake turned into a meme and broke the universe's internal logic in a way that was hard to forget. Star Wars, the Force as a plot device. In the Star Wars universe, the Force started as an almost mystical spiritual energy that Jedi and Sith could harness in subtle ways. But over time, especially in the sequels, it's been used as a catch-all plot device. From Force healing and resurrection to ridiculous feats like pulling entire starships out of the sky. It's become less about skill and more about whatever the writers need in that moment. The Force went from being a mysterious, almost religious element to just another superpower that can do whatever the plot requires requires, diluting its mystique. Also, The Last Jedi sucked. Harry Potter, the Time Turner inconsistencies in The Cursed Child. In the original Harry Potter series, the Time Turner was introduced as a carefully controlled magical object with strict rules about changing the past. However, in the play Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, the lore around time travel was completely rewritten. Characters freely changed significant events in the past, creating alternate timelines that never existed in the original story. This breaks the established rules of time travel in the Harry Potter universe, making the plot feel contrived and inconsistent with the world that J.K. Rowling built. But at the same time, J.K. Rowling is evil. So, DC Comics, the New 52 reboot inconsistencies. When DC Comics launched the New 52, it was intended to be a fresh start for its characters, resetting many storylines and creating a streamlined continuity. However, the reboot led to major inconsistencies in established lore. Characters like Batman were rebooted with only a few years of crime-fighting history, yet they still had complex relationships and a long list of sidekicks like Nightwing, Red Hood, and the new Robin. That would have taken decades to develop in real time. That rushed attempt to blend old and new elements created a really disjointed timeline that left readers puzzled about what was still considered canon or not. Now, you might be thinking, what's the fucking point of all this information being thrown your way, or hinted at? Well, a few months ago, I watched James Cameron's Aliens with my mom. I've already absorbed most of the lore in this universe has to offer, but my mom has never seen the first Alien. She went into the sequel completely blind, without any context or setup. By the end of the movie though, she really enjoyed it. I was glad she liked something I shared with her, because honestly, Aliens is a really good movie, lore or no lore. That said, it also made me feel really dumb for having invested so much time and energy into this universe's lore, and by extension, lore in general. My mom and I had completely different viewing experiences. She went in fresh, and I went as the nerd who ate it all up. It made me realize how pointless and overcomplicated it can all feel. Seeing people argue on Reddit about what's canon and what's not is like watching a modern day Council of Nicaea. An old friend of mine once told me he thought the concept of lore was just plain stupid, and at the time, I was appalled. How could anyone dismiss something as profound and important as Minecraft lore? But with time and reflection, I've come to realize he might have had a point. I've definitely spent way too much time diving into fictional universes, mainly because it was easier than dealing with my real world problems. Let's be honest, debating how many pixels Steve's balls might be, it's 2x2 pixels by the way, is a lot less intimidating than confronting reality. Lore has its charm, and I get why it's so appealing, but like anything, best enjoyed responsibly and in moderation. Stories and history have always been essential to human society, serving as records of the past and vessels for profound lessons. Words hold power, making stories collections of immense influence for those who engage with them. From biblical tale of David and Goliath to GTA 4's The Ballad of Gay Tony, each narrative offers valuable insights. Fictional lore plays a similar role. It's technically also optional, but it deepens and explains the world within the story. In today's landscape, the lore industrial complex thrives, with fictional universes treating lore as essential for success and immersion. In the turbulent times we live in, lore also becomes a refuge from the harsh realities of late-stage capitalism, as people become increasingly aware of the systemic problems in our society. It really explains why the injection of woke politics in modern media often provokes a childlike response in some people. Reactionary policies don't solve our world's problems. Instead, they fuel the desire to escape the consequences of these very actions. Everyone who is alive, has ever lived, or will ever live carries their own lore. Many people hold stories that may never be told, but those stories shape them all the same. Keep that in mind the next time you meet a stranger. Even you, the viewer of this video, has countless hours of lore that define who you are. The best we can do is learn from our experiences and share them so others may learn too. I want to leave off on a quote of an author whose one book I've read and I didn't really like, but I think it's a good quote to end off on. People are trapped in history, and history is trapped in them. James Baldwin. Thanks for watching. Here's hoping the YouTube algorithm blesses me today. I'm genuinely grateful for the chance to hop on my soapbox and talk about something I'm incredibly passionate about. It's been a blast sharing my thoughts with you all. I'm planning to make more videos, I've been cooking a few ideas, and I'm always open to suggestions, so feel free to drop them in the comments. Making a YouTube video has been a dream of mine since I was a kid, and here I am, making my second one. Another thing off my bucket list, which also includes climbing Mount Everest.